latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for November 15th. Not far from the end of the Northern Hemisphere hurricane seasons, and no tropical cyclones are active today on day 319 of the year so far. 87 storms have formed around the world. The average yearly is 92. So with no tropical cyclones on the horizon, we have a few areas of interest though. We've actually marked one in the Atlantic, which is to the south of the Azores. Low chance of development, but it's something that we're looking at for possible signs. Currently with tropical storm force winds, not tropical though, but simulated satellite suggesting that it could become a subtropical cyclone. Day 183 in the Eastern Pacific, and it's majorly dead here. Nothing going on at all, no areas of interest, no shiny, colourful oblongs to look at, so the Eastern Pacific hopefully finished for the year. In the Western Pacific right now, we've also got no areas of interest, as there have been some systems that the models were picking up, but they haven't taken their chances at all, and looking very poor out there right now, and the models have completely given up, so we're at 0% for anything here right now by the looks of things. In the North Indian Ocean, we've got two areas of interest. 92B still there with a 30% chance, and also the other system on the western coast of India, 30% chance as it moves over the Arabian Sea. This is how the Atlantic is looking right now. You can see that system that we've marked with a very low chance of development, currently a significant sized cyclone, extratropical, potentially cyclonic in fact, and certainly got some strong winds there towards the Azores. It will move towards the south-southwest there and generally weaken. It will have a small chance of becoming perhaps a subtropical cyclone. The phase diagrams aren't really in its favour, but the simulated satellite imagery suggests that it might have a bit of a chance. It's not going to go anywhere, it's going to die off quite quickly. My pen's still on there. Let's move over to the rest of the Atlantic. Nothing, I don't think, all the way to the long range. Let's take a look at the wider basin, and you can see that nothing happens at all in the tropical zones. As you can see further north over the United States, some very possibly impactful and certainly very large nor'easter type systems that float off over the Atlantic. Look at that one in a late run there, but that is way out and probably not true to life. Eastern Pacific then, you saw on the satellite imagery, or you will shortly, that the conditions are pretty poor around it, and as you can see, nothing is going to form by the looks of things now. The season should be shut off there. It usually is by this point in the year. Western Pacific, GFS did have a system that was going to form in the Philippine Sea around about this area. Right now that system is still traceable on GFS model. You can just see it popping up there, and it heads towards the general direction of the Philippines, and there it is again. So it could still develop eventually, but we've got such low confidence at this point, and it's the Western Pacific which is really doing poorly at the moment, that we've not marked it on our tropical weather bulletin tonight, and nothing really comes out of the whole thing anyway towards the end there. Indian Ocean, only a slightly different story. You've got these two systems, of course. The first one, which is here, that moves out over the Arabian Sea. You can see it there, traceable. And it continues down to there, so it could become a weak tropical cyclone as it ends up moving towards the African continent, and obviously dies off somewhere around here, what's left of that potential tropical cyclone. Towards the east, you can see this system perhaps trying to tighten up. That's 92B, skirting towards the west there, just south of the Andaman Islands, and then on towards the coast of India. There it is, just off the eastern coast. Again, doesn't look like it's going to get much strength, but of course if we do get a cyclonic system or even just a depression in that area, they can obviously deliver huge amounts of rain to India. which takes us to probably the most likely system to form in the next 5 days, and that's a little area of interest that looks like it's going to form off Java, Indonesia in about a day or two, and then it will really start to become developed. We'll pass the Cocos Islands, I think it is there, one of those Australian islands that are far off, and become a tropical cyclone, and there it is, according to GFS, becoming, I'll just take the pen off and zoom in, you can see it here developing, possibly reaching hurricane equivalent status, a small system, and it skirts round and goes all the way around, and actually that is another one trying to form there and doing a little dance around. That's towards the late part of the model run, but I think we can put maybe a decent chance that we might see this tropical cyclone, which we've currently marked at 30%. It was 40% this morning, 12 hours ago. Looking towards the South Pacific, I don't think there's anything on the horizon yet, not even into the long range, so that really concludes all the models at this time. Atlantic satellite imagery shows a massive pool of dry air dominating, and you can see that moisture trail as well, extending from the Central American area, Western Caribbean, through the Atlantic, and along that area you can see sometimes some systems break off and develop, but nothing looking like that right now. The Eastern Pacific, we're having to use GOES 16 at the moment, so we're cut off at the western side there. Generally very dry atmosphere, you've got that massive area of moisture though, well out at sea. That sometimes can make a very brief late spin-up cyclone, but this one will not. And looking at the Western Pacific right now, you can see that general large area of cloudiness there over the Mariana Islands, generally into the Philippine Sea. That's the area that we were looking at that could develop into that small chance of a tropical cyclone, but at the moment we've put chances pretty much near nil. Elsewhere, Westpac, fairly quiet. Indian Ocean, you can see generally those thunderstorms that are occurring across the North Indian Ocean and over the Indian continent, but generally nothing organised at all. Southern Hemisphere starting to warm up a little bit as well. And there's another look, a slower look at the Western Pacific, currently showing not much going on in terms of the extent of those clouds when you look at the infrared channel here in the Mariana Island area. Lots of cloudiness as well towards Vietnam too, so it looks like they'll be getting some rain at the moment too. Well, sea surface temperatures certainly aren't dropping too quickly in the Eastern Pacific. Still fairly warm along the coast of Mexico, but it looks like the Eastern Pacific has had it for the year. The Atlantic probably very nearly so as well, but still very warm waters in the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. Can't quite rule out a Caribbean or Gulf tropical cyclone just yet, but we're very nearly there. And looking into the Indian Ocean, very warm waters, especially in the Bay of Bengal further east, the warmer it is, over 30 degrees Celsius there. The Western Pacific also remaining fairly warm. You can see those temperatures around the Philippines pushing 30 degrees towards the south and over the Western Pacific basin, the Philippine Sea and beyond. Decent water temperatures. That's certainly not going to stop any tropical cyclones, but other conditions I'm sure will have much more of a factor, as they are doing currently. Just looking briefly towards the southern hemisphere there, the area around Australia, very warm, warmer than average as well. Coral Sea in particular, when you look at this graphic, quite a few warm anomalies, and you can quite clearly see the La Nina effect persisting in the central and eastern Pacific. A little bit of warmness mucking in there as well though, but generally the La Nina pattern is still fairly strong. On this day, November the 15th, 2006, saw the peak of Hurricane Sergio, because they can happen in the Eastern Pacific still this late in the season, although it is a bit of an anomaly. High-end Category 2 at that as well. Its picture displayed there. Nothing else was active on this day. A Western Pacific typhoon, I forget the name now, had just dissipated though in the South China Sea on this day in 2006, 15 years ago. Feels like much less than that. Well, let's take a look at the next names on our lists. In the Atlantic, we reached the end of the naming list. Wanda was the last name, so we'll need another naming list if we get another storm in the Atlantic. The East Pacific, the next name is Vivian. Been a while since we reached V in the East Pac, apart from 2018 I guess. Central Pacific was still waiting for Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Nyato, and in the North Indian Ocean we're looking out for Jawad. As we look towards the start of the Southern Hemisphere seasons, in the Australian region the next name is Paddy, the Southwest Indian Ocean Anna, and in the South Pacific it's Cody. That's all from us tonight. We'll be back with another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.